Whew. Good luck, my man. You ready for heat?
Good luck.
Hi everyone, Dave Bradshaw here for the Grapple Group, and I'm joined today by the FWA's Head of Product Content, Alex Shane. Alex, good to have you with us today. Now, I want to address a few issues if I can. You're one of the most controversial figures in British wrestling. I think that's a pretty much a given.
So, yeah.
Yet, as someone who's been heavily involved with the new FWA, you've been surprisingly quiet, given what people know about you, in the past few months, particularly as the FWA has been getting more and more attention, both positive and negative. In fact, we actually filmed a sit-down interview, a little bit like this one, just 6 months ago, which subsequently you never decided to air. It addressed a lot of the issues, that have been raised. Why was that not put up, and why have you kind of decided, almost in an impromptu way, to hold this interview now as we approach the first birthday of the new FWA?
Well, yeah, the reason was you may be able to hear a tambourine in the background. Then RQW House has become a hive of activity. This is the full-time hub for British wrestling in this country, in fact European wrestling in this country. And the reason that I've decided to sort of chat like this today was really, as you know, on the spur of the moment. We did an interview 6 months ago, and in hindsight it was an interview that was meant to address certain criticisms and certain things that people had said. And I'm 30 years of age now. I did used to post on the fan forums when I was in my early mid-20s, and people knew that if they poke me with a stick, I'm going to poke back. Why? Because I'm passionate about British wrestling. If somebody says something that's incorrect, I'm going to stand up and say that's incorrect. If somebody says something about me on a personal level, and it's someone that I know is hiding behind a username on a forum that once used to work for me or was a rival promoter, I'm going to say something. And the reason I've been so quiet is because I'm a 30-year-old man now. I understand that the professional part of the professional wrestling equation is equally as important as the wrestling part. I spent a lot of my time trying to get the wrestling part right. Not so much myself, although I feel that I've got, I'm the best now that I've ever been as an in-ring performer. But in terms of the quality of wrestling that I brought to the UK. But I was always very unprofessional, I felt. I was always really polite to fans, but getting into things on the fan forum and being small time. And I feel that, I look at these promoters on the forum now who claim to be doing the right thing for British wrestling and loving British wrestling, and I'm all about British wrestling. But to be honest, all I see is a bunch of people on that forum, the UKFF, who have just got jaded agendas, and that's not going to bring our industry forward. If somebody comes along from the outside, British wrestling, let's check where all the fans congregate, the fan forum, and what they get is a load of bitter smart fans, frustrated people who want to be in the business, jaded people who are in the business, and then a handful of genuine fans going, what's going on? I just want to talk about wrestling. So the reason I decided to do it today is because there's things that need to be said, and also because I feel that we, and me, have bought some good credit in the last 12 months. Very few people talk about the kind of things that we discussed and said we were going to do because they haven't got the guts to come out and say that because they think that it won't happen. We've said it and we've done it. And now, a year from the date that we launched, it's time to say some stuff and to address what needs to be addressed.
As you say, we are now approaching the first birthday of the FWA, and we are in a very...
Well, technically the 11th birthday of the FWA, but of the new FWA, yeah.
Indeed. And we are in a very different place to where we were last time I sat down and spoke to you. In fact, we're just days removed from what was, by popular consensus, the most highest quality top to bottom card that the new FWA...
To be honest, Dave, I actually will go on record as saying right now it's the single best wrestling show I've ever seen. Right there, we will talk about him, I'm sure, in more detail, but The Art of War is a blueprint for not British wrestling in the next... I've been writing my FSM articles for 3 years. These have not been shots in the dark, cries in the wilderness. These have been me trying to get the word out there, which I have done. And it's freely available for your Vince McMahons and for your Dixie Carters. People think, well, what does Alex Shane know? Well, I'll tell you what I know. I've been the most successful person outside of Brian Dixon in this country for the last 20 years. The difference between me and Brian Dixon is that I'm all about the quality of the wrestling, and that's not a knock on Brian. Brian's a very, very shrewd businessman, but I've always been about pushing the boundaries of British wrestling, taking things to the next level. You don't see all-star guest matches on FWA shows, but you have seen it the other way around. So the fact that I've been able to do that, and I've done it, with the FWA, I invented the Super Show concept. I run a 16 promotions tournament, the Cowie Cup. I've been the promoter for Ring of Honor, for TNA, and that's just what, as a promoter, as an author. I've written a wrestling psychology book. I've done all these things as a professional wrestler, like more than most people in this country, I believe. And as a trainer, I've been ridiculously successful. But that's not to toot my own horn, as people always say it is. It's to say, listen, if I say something, I have some credentials. It's like what I've just told you means absolutely nothing to the majority of the people who are our big critics. They believe that I have no good credit. I have got good credit. I've done this stuff. So I feel now that we stand in a position which is a very strong one, but all we've done is exactly what we said we were going to do. And it's important for me to sort of bring this up now. I will come back to, sorry to cut you off, but it's important for me to say now, I piss people off because I'm opinionated and because I'm passionate. Who do I piss off? Opinionated, passionate people. I've said it before, you hate most of others what you identify with in yourself. So if you're sat at home and you're watching this, I want to apologise if I come, and to you, Dave, if I seem overly, what am I looking for? A bit punchy with my answers. It's because desperate times call for desperate measures. These are desperate times. There's no point sugarcoating anything. We're already way late in the game. So what I say needs to be to the point and pertinent. And if it comes across as aggressive, I'm a peace-loving vegetarian. There's nothing aggressive about the person sat in this chair. As a performer, that's part of my role. But so if I sound like I'm being arsey, or if anything I say comes across wrong, it's not intended with malice. It simply is because I care about this. And you're right, The Art of War, I believe, top to bottom, not only the best show the FWA's done, the best show in wrestling so far. And I'm not talking about Madison Square Garden or WrestleMania 3. I'm talking about the actual fact that you can sit that DVD down with somebody in the average pub and they will not fall off their bar stool laughing. I cannot find a single wrestling show, apart from maybe All Japan Women, but there's no storylines in that this is a blueprint for pro wrestling, and it's happened in Britain. And we're not just talking about the in-ring quality of the product, we're talking about the things that happen with the company behind the scenes. That is equally as important, and I'm sure that's something we'll sort of discuss.
I mean, bearing in mind the credentials that you've just put forward, I want to go a little bit more into why it is that you think The Art of War was such a spectacularly good show. I mean, I know, I'm someone who's known you for a couple of years now, and I know you're into this because, I know you won't say it on camera, but you're spending 15-hour days upstairs. You're editing the footage yourself. I mean, I've seen the amount of time you're putting into this, and it's something.
Editing the footage myself as someone who's got no editing experience, because we couldn't afford our editor anymore. So, it's time to be hands-on. You're doing stuff that, you're not just our commentator. You're doing all our press releases. What's happening, Dave, is a nexus of people, a crew of people have come together and they've decided desperate times call for desperate measures, and there's stuff that needs to be done. And, like you said with The Art of War, the reason it was such a good top to bottom show is because our guys are breaking down the conventions of wrestling and changing them. And pro wrestling needs that, man. It's so, I get so sick of watching wrestling. Why is it that it's a convention of wrestling that for every hour of television, there's at least 10 minutes that actually make you cringe? You wouldn't get that as a convention in any other TV show. 30 minutes of EastEnders, we've got to have 5 minutes of it that's utter crap. And it's really embarrassing, even to a wrestling fan. So why is that a convention of pro wrestling? Because people don't want to think outside the box. Sorry, Dave, I cut you off.
I mean, I was going to say, I felt as a commentator and as a wrestling fan for almost 2 decades that maybe it was just being in the hall at the time, and maybe it was commentating on it. I don't know, but being a part of that 8-man tag team match, being in the building for that was unlike. There was something different about that to anything I'd ever experienced. And I know you said to me something pretty similar after you came back from behind the curtain. So what was it about that match that separates it from any other match in recent history?
I'll tell you why. When we got back, obviously we'll talk about my involvement in that, because it was something that wasn't meant to happen. But when we got backstage, we couldn't work out whether we just had an amazing match or whether or not it wasn't. And the reason is because we all felt we were acting more than we were just wrestling, okay? Now, a couple of fans said, it was a good show. It was, no, you're not seeing it for what it is, okay? You're not seeing it for what it is. That's like watching The Sixth Sense, but not seeing the last 5 minutes of the film, okay? The clincher is that it's not about these 5-star matches. We've even got a storyline in FWA which deals with the whole 5-star matches. This is nonsense. This is not sustainable. Every single industry right now is trying to find a way to make their business sustainable. Yet pro wrestling